Marjorie sat by the window, knitting needles clicking rhythmically as she watched the early morning sun stretch across her garden. She'd always loved mornings, calm, predictable, kind to her bones. Today, however, the date marked something new, her 80th birthday. She wasn't afraid of the number. Marjorie had never been the type to deny her age. What unsettled her, though, was the feeling that something had shifted. Over the last few months, subtle changes had begun to stack up, small things she couldn't quite explain or control. Now, sitting with her tea, she reflected on 5 things that had started happening, like it or not. 1. Time had become more elastic. Marjorie had noticed that time no longer moved in straight lines. Some days felt endless, especially when it rained and her knees ached. Other days flew by in a blink. She'd sit down to read a chapter and suddenly it would be dinner time. What struck her most was how the past felt just as vivid as the present. She'd remember her wedding day in detail, the perfume she wore, the way Harold looked at her when she walked down the aisle. Yet she could forget whether she'd taken her morning pill 5 minutes ago. Time bent in strange ways. It made her laugh sometimes, and sometimes it left her standing in the kitchen trying to remember why she'd gone in there in the first place. Number 2, sleep became a mysterious stranger. She used to sleep through the night like a stone. Now sleep came in pieces. Marjorie would drift off around 9, wake up at 1, stare at the ceiling until 3, and finally doze again just before the sun came up. It wasn't just about age. It was her body's chemistry, her slower metabolism, the medications. Her doctor explained that deep sleep, the kind that restores memory and mood, decreases with age. Marjorie understood, but that didn't make it easier when she sat up in the dark with her robe wrapped tight, watching the clock blink in slow motion. She tried warm milk, chamomile tea, gentle yoga. It helped sometimes. Other nights, she'd find peace in simply being awake, writing a letter, listening to the wind, remembering. 3. The body had its own plans. The body, once obedient and strong, had started writing its own script, stiff joints in the morning, a touch of vertigo if she stood too fast, bruises that showed up out of nowhere and stuck around too long. Marjorie had always prided herself on being active. She'd gardened, played tennis, danced on Friday nights, but now her balance was different. She had to move more deliberately. Each step required thought. The stairs creaked a little louder beneath her, and so did her knees. One afternoon, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror and paused. Her hands, once smooth and quick, had grown bony and veined. Her skin, paper thin, bore the story of her life. Sunspots, laugh lines, and scars she could still trace back to exact memories. She didn't mind the changes. What bothered her was how invisible she had begun to feel. In stores, younger clerks addressed her too slowly, as if speaking to a child. People held doors but didn't make eye contact. It was as though age had wrapped her in a cloak of silence. 4 friends began to vanish. The hardest change, though, was the growing quiet in her social life. Each year the phone rang less. The bridge group had shrunk. The Christmas card list had grown shorter. Some friends moved into assisted living. Others simply stopped calling. A few had passed, leaving behind a hollow space that couldn't be filled. Harold had died 5 years ago. She still talked to him sometimes, when she was alone in the garden or when she needed help deciding which tomatoes to pick. His picture sat by her bed, smiling like he always had. Loneliness, she had learned, wasn't about being alone. It was about being surrounded by memories no one else shared anymore. Still, she tried. She joined a book club, called her grandchildren often, and sent handwritten notes to neighbors who'd lost someone. Connection took more work now, but it mattered more too. 5. A fierce clarity took hold. Perhaps the most unexpected change of all came not from her body but from her mind. Marjorie found herself caring less about what others thought. She spoke more plainly. If she didn't want to go to an event, she said so. If she wanted a second slice of pie, she took it. The years had peeled away the need for permission. She could see her life more clearly, what mattered, what didn't, what had lasted. The regrets were there, of course, but they had softened. The joys, on the other hand, had brightened with time. She remembered the faces of her children when they were small, the way Harold had read her poetry, the feeling of wind against her arms during a drive with the windows down. These were the things that had endured. Not the money, not the appearances, Just the love, the effort, the laughter. That morning on her 80th birthday, her youngest granddaughter Eva arrived with a balloon and a bouquet of wildflowers. Great Gram, you're amazing, she said, wrapping her arms around her. Marjorie chuckled. I'm 80, she said, which mostly means I know a few things, and I've stopped pretending I don't. Eva grinned. Like what? Marjorie thought for a moment. Like how precious mornings are. How little things, like hot tea or the feel of soft socks, matter more than you think, and how you never stop becoming someone new. The girl blinked, curious. Even at 80? Especially at 80, Marjorie said. That evening, she lit a single candle on a small piece of cake. She made a wish, not for youth or strength or time, but for presence. To stay rooted in what she still had, this body, this breath, this moment. Whether she liked it or not, life had changed, but within those changes were truths she hadn't seen before. She was 80. She was still here. And in that, there was something quietly extraordinary.